Okay, welcome. So today we are starting our series on heroes, and as I said earlier, the series is entitled, which is so funny because I don't know why I entitled this because I never put it anywhere, but it's entitled The Hero in the Mirror. And the spoiler alert is that I'm talking about you, each and every one of you. I bet you can probably figure that out. So I had to ask myself at the beginning of this series why I wanted to talk about heroism, each of us growing into the heroes that we are, and why that matters. It's a bit of an unusual topic for a series, I thought. I've never done a series on heroes before. So after thinking about it, I thought that I chose it because at the end of the day, my goal here is to remind each of you who you are and where you come from, just who you are. Every week for 20 minutes or whatever period of time, I'd like to rekindle for you the knowledge that, as Joseph Campbell put it, you as you know yourself are not the final term of your being. You as you know yourself are not the final term of your being. I know that many of you are familiar with Joseph Campbell, the famous American mythologist, teacher, and author. You may have read his most well-known and foundational book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, or seen the documentary of his conversations with Bill Moyer, The Power of Myth, which are on YouTube. You can get them, I don't know, from PBS. You can find them all over the place. They were first broadcast in 1988, the year following Campbell's death. It's about 6 hours of dialogue between Bill Moyers and Joseph Campbell. There's also a book with all the transcripts that you can buy because it's just so rich. So for all of them, you can get the entire length. I think they talked for about 24 hours. And they did it at George Lucas's ranch, Skywalker Ranch. Campbell's life work was to tell us about the stories that are at our center, in our deep, what he called the collective unconscious. Actually, that's a term from Jung. By understanding these stories, these patterns, these mythic tales, we can understand the forces that move us and create us, and we can have a clearer sense of where we are headed. These stories, at the end of the day, they tell us about us. You may have heard the phrase collective unconscious. It's the unconscious that we all share. It's just in our DNA. It's just the mythic truth that is at the essence of each of us. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a bit. So what did Campbell mean when he said that we are not the final term of our being? He meant that there's more to us than we see, than our ego tells us about ourselves. You know, our ego says, I like this, I like that, I can do this, I can't do that. That's all here. He called our mind a secondary organ. And he said, we have to make sure it is not in control. We let it stay in control so often, but it shouldn't be. He directed our attention to what he called a plane of P-L-A-N-E, of being, or an energy that's behind the visible plane, and which supports and gives life and meaning to the physical plane on which we live. The stories, these myths, they inform and they shape our life journey, whether we know it or not. We are subject to them, whether we know it or not. There's a joke in my family about movies that I like to watch. My relatives call, yeah, my sister's back there laughing. My relatives call them exploding helicopter movies. I know, they do. Whenever a film comes up that has violence, death, you know, continents shifting, cities blowing up, millions being killed, somebody calls me up and says, Melanie, this is a great movie, you're going to love it. And I don't know what kind of reputation I get. And I tell them, no, that's not it. I don't go to a movie just because things are exploding or millions of people are dying. As a matter of fact, the older I get, the more I dislike watching just random violence. I think that's just something that's changing. But the kind of movie I like is what I have always called, from Campbell, the hero's journey. Now, it frequently involves exploding helicopters and continent shifting and a lot of trials. And I guess that's just a plus, just kidding. But it's a story in which the hero is called to a greater purpose. He or she leaves home for places unfamiliar and frightening, overcomes obstacles and trials, triumphs, and returns home with the fruits of victory, including wisdom and greater understanding. Those are the kinds of movies I love. The hero returns to the status quo, but he or she is made different. They're back home, but they're different, elevated by the journey. That pattern, in a nutshell, in a very nutshell, is what Campbell calls the myth of the hero's journey. It's a story pattern that is repeated in every culture from time immemorial until the present and will continue. Think of Star Wars, The Wizard of Oz, The Hunger Games, The Fellowship of the Ring. Each follows this pattern of departure or the call to adventure, initiation and trials, victory and return. Campbell had 17 phases of the hero's journey. We're not going to go through all of them, but in a broad sense, that's what they are. Departure, initiation and trials, and return. So let's take one example. Luke Skywalker. Okay. Has a continuing urge for something more, for adventure. Linda's laughing, I see her. His uncle and his aunt are killed in a raid. He answers the call to adventure, to leave his familiar home and venture out literally into the vast unknown. He leaves the planet and goes out into space. He does not go alone, another mythic component. He meets a helper in Obi-Wan Kenobi who gives him a magic implement to help him. And what is that? His lightsaber. He faces trials, danger. He has to overcome obstacles within himself, fear and doubt. He ultimately triumphs. He destroys evil. He blows up the Death Star. And he returns to the status quo with new knowledge of himself. He is a Jedi. He has a sister. It is perfect. As a matter of fact, Lucas was a student of Joseph Campbell's and based that series in large part on the hero's journey. This pattern is repeated and has been repeated with culturally appropriate variables from early myths like Prometheus stealing the fire and bringing it from Mount Olympus and bringing it to Earth, to mankind, to Katniss Everdeen in The Hunger Games, another movie I love, saving the districts from the merciful and evil President Snow. And the main part of that country, Panem. So why are these stories so important? Somebody asked Joseph Campbell once, what's so important about the hero's journey? Why do we keep saying this? He says, because it's a great story to tell. And it is. It's just, it resonates with all of us because it's in there. It's in our DNA. These stories are in the vast collective unconscious of the waters in which we all swim. So what lessons does the hero's journey have for us? Well, it's a roadmap to the journey that we are all on. It's a guide to our continued growth and awakening. At the end of the day, the hero is created by the journey. We all are created heroes by our own life's journey. So how does this work? Okay, we start in the status quo. We are in our own ordinary world. We're just kind of blah, 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 moving along, not doing anything extraordinary. Then something happens. An event, a person, something that propels us off that path against our will or which induces us to leave it voluntarily. This is the call to adventure. Isn't that a great word? The call to adventure. It's a call to something different, new, and by definition, something unknown. So think about your own life. What have been, as you think about it, what have been some of your calls to adventure? For me, just speaking within the context of this community, one was a couple of years ago when our former minister said, hey, you want to give a talk? You know, I was back there running the camera. She said, why don't you just get up and give a talk? And then, have you thought about going to seminary? I wasn't on that path. I was doing something entirely different. It was like, well, the choice is to say yes or to say, not me, not now. It's the call to something different. Sometimes the call is refused. You can say, nah, I think I'm okay, I'm good. I'm good where I am, thanks, I'm fine. I'm happy where I am. What leads to that? A sense of duty, a sense of inadequacy, a fear that you can't do it, or an inability to imagine such a new life keeps us in the ordinary or the known. The hero, if he or she refuses, Campbell teaches us, loses the ability to take life-affirming action and instead remains small and unaware and limited. We have to keep in mind one fact about the call. Campbell teaches that the call to adventure is always to an adventure for which you are ready. There's a scary thought. It's always a call to an adventure for which you are ready. When I got that call that I just mentioned to go to seminary to give that first talk, it was a call that I was ready to answer, even if I didn't think it at the time, even if I didn't know it at the time, even if I hadn't considered it. Not every offer of something different is the call to adventure, however, that will lead you further down your life's path. They're not all like that. So how do we tell between the call to adventure that will lead you to greater awakening, to greater fulfillment of who you are, or an invitation to an adventure that just kind of looks shiny and fun? How do we tell the difference? How does Campbell teach us that we tell the difference and that we head on a path that will lead us to, as he calls it, your soul's high adventure? Another phrase I love, your soul's high adventure. He gave us the way to identify our call. He articulated in one of the most misunderstood and widely quoted phrases of the past 50 years. Who knows what that phrase is? Follow your bliss. He said, follow your bliss. This phrase has been mischaracterized, I believe, to mean that we should do whatever makes us happy. Well, bliss is kind of a giveaway. We should do whatever makes us happy and not do whatever causes us pain. It's been seen as the ultimate call to hedonism, and it's not. Our failure has been to take this great guidance out of context, and the context for it is the hero's journey. It's not just do whatever makes you happy. The context is the hero's journey, your hero's journey. Campbell writes that he came upon the notion of bliss or rapture through his study of the Upanishads. He wrote, "Now I came to this idea of bliss because in Sanskrit there are three terms that represent the brink, the jumping off place to the ocean of transcendence, what he's also called enlightenment. Three jumping off points, that's great. Three jumping off points. That was a theater major, I just wanted to point out. Three jumping off points to enlightenment. The words are Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means being, Chit means consciousness, and Ananda means bliss or rapture. I thought," he wrote, "I don't know whether my consciousness is proper consciousness or not. I don't know whether what I know of my being is proper being or not, but I do know where my rapture is. So let me hang on to rapture, and that will bring me both my consciousness and my being." I think it worked, he wrote. Three paths to awakening, and one of them is following your rapture or your bliss. He wrote, if you follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while, waiting for you. And the life that you ought to be living is the one you are living. Wherever you are, if you are following your bliss, you are enjoying that refreshment, that life within you all the time. Doors will open where you would not have thought there would be doors, and where there wouldn't be a door for anyone else. The hero's journey is your journey. Your journey is your own hero's journey. He writes, bliss is like a secret underground fountain that's bubbling up within you naturally, because it's part of our mythic being. And also like an ocean that's trying to pour into you from the outside. You are surrounded by the possibility of following what you should be doing, following your bliss, following your life's purpose at that moment. Now, you cannot use constantly being happy as a guide. The call that matters is your deepest self trying to get your attention. Writer Craig Chalquist writes, you will know the call because it's the intrinsic, innermost you trying to get your attention. Have you ever had a voice like that? It's the innermost you trying to get your attention. Don't keep doing this, it insists, raising its voice until your body aches with it. You weren't meant for this. Do something else. Not necessarily something grander or more heroic, let alone cosmic, but something aligned with your real potential and ability to contribute. Something fulfilling beyond the daily bread. It's not always being happy. As a matter of fact, when you are following your bliss, when you are on your hero's journey, you're probably not blissfully happy a great deal of the time. The story goes that in later life, Campbell grumbled, he should have said, follow your blisters. He thought that was closer to what he actually meant. So what stops us from following our bliss or following our blisters and continuing on the journey that we were meant to take? Well, Campbell identifies it as our ego, our mind. That secondary organ tells us, no, stop, don't go there. That's not safe. You're fine here. Who knows what's out there? Things are good. Don't worry about it. Our hero's journey involves taking the greater look, the broader look, the braver look, past our ego, slaying that dragon that represents our ego, standing in the way of our greater dream and our achievement. Following your bliss puts you on a continual journey of self-discovery and fulfillment. Becoming a hero in your own life means following the path for you through which you can become fully human, through which you become who you are meant to be, which means that you step into your full maturity and your full humanity, conscious of your potential and your reach, and what some might call your life's purpose in that moment. Your bliss may change. Your bliss 10 years ago might not be your bliss in 5 years. It doesn't mean you don't do it. It means that as you journey down your path, the road twists and turns, and you continue to accomplish and you continue to grow. So life purpose, I think we have many. We can have a particular life purpose at a particular time and accomplish it and move on. So taking this journey takes an extraordinarily brave soul, willing to take that step toward what calls to you despite setbacks, hard work, despair, and uncertainty. Look at Luke Skywalker. It doesn't come easy. Look at all those women that Lori read out. All, Dorothy Day, Barbara Jordan, the list goes on. You've got the list right there. It was an amazing list of women of accomplishment who stepped outside what their culture, what their minds probably told them they were supposed to do, and made a huge difference. So let me look at another real-life hero, certainly not as well known nationally, but taking on real adversity in a path that does not have a Hollywood ending. I spoke to you last February, about a guy named Dr. Tom Catena. Do you all remember that? He was a Catholic missionary, still is, working in the remote Nuba Mountains of Sudan. Since 2011, a civil war has been ongoing between the Sudanese government and the Sudanese People Liberation Army, seeking more self-determination and economic improvement for the people of the Nuba Mountain area. The Sudanese government has killed thousands of men, women, and children and banned all journalism and humanitarian aid. Many children die after stepping on landmines or playing with devices that turn out to be explosives. So Dr. Tom, as he's called, defied the ban on outsiders coming in to help, and he remains as one of 2 doctors based in the Nuba Mountains for a population of over 500,000. Last February when I spoke, he was the only doctor, but he has since gained a pediatrician who obviously helps with the kids' cases. He's been there since 2008 after spending 7 years in Kenya at other missionary hospitals. His equipment is limited, his electricity and running water are sporadic. He says he practices Civil War medicine, but it's better than nothing. He survives carpet bombing and shrapnel, and he's on call 24 hours a day. He earns $350 a month to run a hospital which has over 300 patients in it at any given time. One of the rebel leaders, a Muslim, says simply, he's Jesus Christ. He said that because Jesus healed the sick, made the blind see, and helped the lame walk, something that Dr. Tom does every day. He says his greatest reward is the peace he receives from serving people in need, and he is exactly where he wants to be. So what was Dr. Tom's call to adventure? What led him from the United States to Kenya to the Nuba Mountains? He said in a recent interview that my inspiration is to serve is based on the directives given by Jesus in the gospel. He directed us to serve the least of his brothers and sisters and sell all you own, give the money to the poor, and follow me. He says, I take these literally and do my best to follow them. Now that is a hero. This call took him to danger and deprivation among the poorest of the poor. But his courageous journey has led to the easing of suffering and to hope for thousands in that region. And as he says, he would not be anywhere else. Dangerous and difficult as it is, there is no doubt that he is following his soul's high adventure. So Dr. Tom's story illustrates the next truth of the hero's journey, of the mandate that we follow the path laid out for us, that we say yes to that call. The journey is not for ourselves. In a mythic sense, by saving ourselves, we save our world. By bringing our treasures and our wisdom back, by making the difference that we make, we heal our communities as we heal ourselves. As we reach our full humanity, we spread that vitality and that healing and that love and that wholeness to the communities around us, and we raise everybody up just by going out and contributing as we are able, as our gifts call to us. In his discussions with Bill Moyer, Campbell defined a hero as someone who gives his or her life to something bigger, something other than himself or herself. By following his bliss, by taking that journey, which is also an internal journey, a journey deep into your heart, into your fears, into your own dragons, you bring a healing and a wholeness to the world that otherwise would not be there if you have not fully expressed your own humanity to the fullest. So what makes a hero? I suggest a hero is the one who hears his or her call and just says yes. I may not feel up to it. I don't know what's to come. It looks scary, but I know this path is mine, and it's only mine to take. If we take it, the journey will lead to rewards which could not be found any other way, for ourselves and for all of us. So let's take these thoughts into meditation.